Good morning and welcome back. We are at the moment on day 270 of our 365 day trek through the Bible. And at the moment we are looking at parables that Jesus told that we find in the first three Gospels. Today on day 270 we're looking at a parable about investments. Luke chapter 19 verses 11 to 27. As they heard what Jesus said about Zacchaeus, he went on to tell them this parable because he was now getting closer to Jerusalem, and the people of Jericho were making the assumption that God's rule was about to become apparent. That's why he said, "Once upon a time, a nobleman set off to a country far away, where he had been offered the crown. He expected to return after his coronation. Before he set off, he called 10 of his servants and gave each of them 10 minas, maybe £500, and said to them, 'See what you can earn with this until I come back.' But the people who lived in his town didn't like him and sent a delegation after him with a message, 'It is not our wish to have this man ruling over us.' However, he did come back after his coronation, and he summoned the servants he had given the money to. He wanted to know how much they had made. The first one that came in said, 'Sir, your 10 minas have made 10 more.' And he said to him, 'Well done, you are a good servant. Because you've done so well with this small thing, I will put 10 towns under your authority.' When the second one came in, he said, 'Sir, your money has made 5 minas.' And he said to him, 'But you will have 5 towns to rule.' Another servant came in and said, 'Here is your money. I wrapped it up and hid it. I was scared of you because you are a harsh man. You pick up things you don't own and reap what you didn't sow.' He said to the servant, 'Let me use your own words to condemn you, you worthless servant. You knew I was harsh, grasping what wasn't mine and reaping what I didn't sow. You could have put the money in the bank. At least then I would have got the interest.' And to everyone standing round he said, 'Take his 10 minas and give it to the one who made 10. They said, 'But sir, he's already got 10. Let me tell you, everyone who has, to them more will be given, but to the one who's got nothing, even what he has will be taken. As for my enemies, who wanted to end my reign, bring them here and slay them before me.'" Well, what are we to make of this? This might well be a single parable that Matthew and Luke interpreted in 2 different ways from each other. The parable reached the 2 writers through 2 different routes. You can find Matthew's version, if you want to read it, in Matthew 25, verses 14 to 30. Matthew has the slaves given an outrageous £2,000 to £10,000 each. Luke a much more reasonable 300 to 500 each. Matthew doesn't have the verses about the attempted coup d'etat and the fate of those who plotted it, which we find only in Luke. Luke also misses the point that not all the slaves were given the same amount, each according to their ability. Matthew has 1 slave given 5 talents, about £10,000, 1 2 talents, and 1 only a single talent. Matthew's version is more satisfactory in a number of ways. By comparing the 2, we might make a guess at what the original parable might have looked like. According to one respected Bible scholar, it would have gone something like this. A well-off man entrusted each of his servants with an amount of money to trade with during his absence. On his return, he called them to account. 2 of them had made a decent job and were promoted. The third, who was the more fearful of the 3, had hidden his share somewhere safe and had expected to be praised for the careful way he'd protected it. In the event, he was blamed for not doing what he had been asked to do, since he hadn't brought the money back with a profit. Now, this form of the parable will have been another polemic against the Pharisees, who believed that their duty in its entirety was just to preserve intact what they had been entrusted with by God. They had not grasped the idea that God expected his investment, which they were just keeping safe, and to themselves, should be used for the good of the poor and the sinful of the world. As for Luke's reference to that attempted coup, something similar had actually happened around 4 BC. The date of Jesus' birth was more likely than not around 6 BC, when Herod the Great was still alive. After Herod died in 4 BC, his unpopular son and heir Archelaus visited Emperor Augustus in Rome, seeking the throne of Judea for himself. He was followed by a delegation of 50 Jews who opposed his appointment. Reprisals obviously followed when he returned, but this short detour in Luke is the only place in the historical record where such reprisals are mentioned. The Christians Luke was writing for were more interested in the future than the past, however, and might well have read the story of the attempted coup and its reprisals, thinking of the return of Jesus and Judgment Day. I'm glad that we were able to clear that unpleasant problem up. Tomorrow, between 2 parables, Jesus informs the Pharisees that prostitutes and collaborators will be getting into the kingdom ahead of them for all their righteousness. I'll be glad to see you again tomorrow.